Hello, and welcome to Danctuary.
Oh my god, have we finally done it? Are we finally here? Is this really happening? How y'all doing?
Doing well, dude.
All right.
Hyped, really. sVr has been hyping it up for such a long time. That
I was trying my best to get this going.
yeah.
All right.
Oh my god.
Since this is episode 1, thought we'd kick it off and explain a little bit about what this podcast is and what it's going to be. So the first thing I want to say is it's a community podcast. And that means we're going to bring everyone from the Diablo community in, and we're going to constantly rotate the lineup. So here's the beginning of a list of the creators that you're going to see, and it's definitely not all of them. Obviously, who we have here, myself, sVr, Rhykker, Bluddshed, Deadset. You'll see Datmods, Woodijo, The P-Child, Lord Fluffy, Leviathan, Nineball, Mr. Llama, Lexi, and practically everyone else. So it's going to be amazing. We're going to try to get everyone involved. And the podcast itself is going to be separated into 4 different categories. Core game is the one that we're going to have today. It's going to be our main category where we discuss everything with Diablo and all the future games, stuff like that. The next episode that we're going to have, which Matt will explain at the end of this podcast, will be Endgame. That's going to cover everything you need to know about the metas, about climbing the leaderboards to be immortalized forever. One-on-one is going to be discussions with extraordinary personalities within the ARPG scene. We're going to get their take on the current games and also, of course, what's coming in the future. And finally, off topic will be special episodes where we discuss things like how do you become a full-time content creator?
Don't do it.
First thing, don't.
Just don't.
Encouraging.
Okay, so you will not see me on behind the scenes, just saying.
So the last thing I want to say about the podcast is myself and the guests here are not going to be able to read chat while we're in there. We're going to be focusing on each other and with all the content that we're going to be going over. And the only time we will go to chat is if we have like a specific poll or maybe we have questions at the end. So it's all the normal things, guys. Please remain civil. Don't put anybody down. Keep it positive. And if it's not going well, the mods in chat have permission to fix any disruptions. So with that introduction, let me take a brief moment to introduce our star-studded lineup. First of all, we have sVr. He is the undisputed mechanics god of Diablo 3. He's the guy who crunches all the numbers for us so we don't have to. Rhykker, it would really surprise me if there's anyone in the chat who does not know who Rhykker is. He has been the king of YouTube and content creation for Diablo since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Major part of our community. Bluddshed has dominated the Twitch category for a long time, certainly my entire career while streaming. Lately, he's been playing a ton of solo self-found hardcore, trying tons of interesting builds and just making new rules for the game, showing us how it's done. And finally, Deadset has been the Diablo 3 writer for Icy Veins. So he has helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of people put together your builds and enjoy the game. And I'm not exactly sure how I got on this lineup with all these gods, the God Squad, but I'm Rax.
Man.
I wear a blue hoodie, and I play some Diablo.
Beautiful.
So if I didn't miss anything, guys, I will turn it over to Matt. He's going to pull up the patch notes and get us started, and we're going to go over everything for Season 22 in this episode.
Yes. So, patch notes hit on Friday. And it's the first time in a long time we actually see a two-faced PTR. This hasn't been for quite a while. I'm not sure. Who remembers when was the last time we had a two-faced PTR?
I didn't even know it ever existed.
Yeah, I think you didn't play at that point. It was Season 11. It was the Necromancer beta, where we had two phases. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the reason was fairly simple, right? In the very first patch, the very first iteration of the Necromancer beta, we were given all the legendaries, but no sets. And everybody was like, what the fuck? Why would you do this? And it's fairly simple. If you want players to test Legacy of Nightmares with Necromancer, then you don't give them sets. Because if you give them sets, nobody will test Legacy of Nightmares. So in the first phase, we got all the legendaries, except for the offense. And we had to test Legacy of Nightmares with the Necro. And the reason why we have a two-phase PTR here is Well, the balance patch that we have currently will also persist after Season 22, right? So in this first iteration, we're going to test without the season theme, without the cube slot, meaning this balance patch will persist for quite some time. This is kind of what we can take away from the 2 phases. So the first week, it's kind of non-season testing, see how it goes, which is equivalent to what happened in Necromancer Beta. And afterwards, exactly 1 week from now, we get the Season 22 theme, which hopefully means we'll also get season on the PTR at this point, which will give us the additional cube slot, as well as the shadow clones. And without further ado, let's take a look at the items. We'll take a look at the season theme itself and the changes, as well as the shadow clones after going over the items. And let's get started. I think Rhykker wanted to read this, right? Like, if we have Rhykker, gotta use his voice.
It's a no-brainer. Come on.
All right, thanks, Matt. So yeah, as the first general item here, Hatrig's Gift will now be granting all the class sets, and they've also worked a new rotation schedule. So this upcoming season, depending on which class you choose, your Hatrig's Gift will either give you the Horde of the 90 Savages for Barbarian, Aegis of Valor for Crusader, Gears of the Dreadlands for Demon Hunter, Patterns of Justice for Monk, Masquerade of the Burning Carnival for Necromancer, Mundanugu for Witch Doctor, or Typhon's Veil for Wizard. Also, Stone Gauntlets will now drop for all classes. And, nice little touch here, Paragon bonus gold find has been changed to gold pickup radius at 0.1 per point.
How do you guys feel about the Paragon change? Like, I think that's the big one, right?
I think it's good overall because it just gives more useful stats, you know, versus having things we never think about, you know. Things. It even has big implications for like speed runs, efficiency overall, especially early on. Pretty cool.
It would be more noticeable earlier on, but I think it's a great change, really. There's enough builds that would benefit more from pickup radius than something like RCR or life per hit. So even area damage in certain cases, it shakes up a little how you think about Paragons, I think. Even if it's just a little.
Big swing, right? Do you expect like is this like an opening to further Paragon changes? It's like, is that something that the devs think about? When
Don't tease us, yeah.
Yeah, when they change such a little thing, it's like, so Paragon is now back on the balance table, huh? So they showed us that they can do it. So is that something that we expect in the future? Is it like the first step, seeing how we react and then going further with Paragon? Would you guys say that's something that needs to happen?
Dare I even hope? Really. I think the requested change for gold find has been kicking around for years at this point, and it's been the odd one out in the Paragon points for quite a while, so I wouldn't think they would touch the other ones all that much, but now that you say it, gets me a little warm and tingly inside, really. Yeah, I would love to see more changes made to Paragons.
So to tack on to what Deadset said, when I think about further changes to Paragon, I think about what would I change? And a lot of the other stats seem at least somewhat valuable, right? So it'll be interesting to see how exactly they would do it. The main thing that I would wonder is, would they change like the core, the main one? Because what you do is you hit Paragon 800, then you vomit all the skills into the main stat, right?
Yeah.
There's not much. That's not very cerebral.
I think a lot of us feel like this, right? When you hit Paragon 800 in a season, which is like day 1.5, it's like, all right, game has begun, right? Because from there on, everything is business into your main stat. That's how it feels, unfortunately. So maybe down the line there will be a future change on this end. We'll see. They can definitely do it. They've shown it.
And another thing about pickup radius, I think that's one of the most, I would say, underrated or underappreciated secondary stats. If you ever do the challenge rift, especially if you're racing, if you have 0 pickup radius and you kill an elite, unless you sit on top of the orbs, you will not pick them up. I can promise you how many times I've lost because of that. And it actually does help a lot of builds, like, for example, Z-Neck with their frailty. I mean, and Z-Barb as well in the rat runs, which will be our overlords unless they nerf it next season again for the 20th straight season. I actually think it's going to help and make a meaningful difference.
Dude, I can't wait for the person who gets a challenge rift done, right? And then Rex streams it, he clicks P and he sees no points allocated in health pickup. I can already see the new Rage Fiestas on his stream.
I think we've all like walked over a globe and then not picked it up, then go back and you still don't pick it up, and then you go a third time and you're like, God damn, you know? Like,
Right.
the pickup rate is always appreciated, essentially.
All right, and so let's discuss quickly Stone Gauntlets. How do you feel about this one? Like, finally, intelligence classes don't need to upgrade or get a strength class going just to get them. How do you feel about this? Like, to me, that's a good change. I'm happy.
Great change. Yeah, all around, like, it makes so much sense. I think the next one on the chopping block should be the Swampland Waiters, you know? Everyone is just gambling on a Witch Doctor for those. So, and either they make the legendary power actually mean something, or just make them cross-class, really.
So that has been a suggestion, that they should change the Swampland to be actually a craftable item. So not the Swamplands itself. There's the Gehenna's pants. You can craft them. They are legendaries, right? And it would be nice if they would also have this elemental property, right? So you don't need, like, I guess this is like, how many people actually play Witch Doctor? A lot. How many of those only play it for upgrading to get Swampland? A lot. So
I think there's like 10,000 characters, if not 10 million characters made per season named Pants, please. Level 1, craft, and delete.
That's definitely true for me.
I definitely like the change, right? And they should probably do it for Swampies also. But there is something to be said about your mastery of the game. You know, like somebody doesn't know how to get a Ring of Royal Grandeur, or they don't know how to get the Swampies or the Stone Gauntlets. And then you learn that, and then that's something you know that somebody else doesn't know, and then it kind of adds to your progression, I think. There's a little bit there that
Fair enough.
like about it.
It's very little, though, but fair enough. It exists. Yeah, there's some knowledge there. True.
So real quick before we move on, what about the 7 new sets that are being released for this season? Which one do you guys have your eye on? Are you guys willing to start a certain class to get that Hadrig's Gift, blast with it before switching? Or is it not juicy enough?
Yeah, can I invert the question? Don't start Wizard. That's my only answer. That's it.
He's trying to divert attention. It's going to be broken.
Yes, I think POJ is probably, to me, POJ would probably be the winner. I'm not sure how you guys feel about it. It's definitely not Wizard. You know, if you invert the table and it's Wizard, it's kind of it.
Juicy is maybe not the word that gets me with Hadrig's Gifts particularly, because that really only matters, at least the way I see it, only if you want to be done with the season ASAP and you just want to get it out of the way and chill till the next one. If you really want to do that, I maybe, as you said, POJ or Valor or Dreadlands are fine for that. I think none of them are standouts really all that much for getting the season done in a flash, but I wouldn't be excited for Hordes unless I was planning to play a support barb, and I don't think I am. I played Mundunugu way too recently, so not gonna go for that either. Kind of want to go Wizard against your advice, actually, but that's not related to
be the rebel. Yeah, let's do it. I think you should definitely play whatever you want, whatever gets you the most excited to get out of bed in the morning, you know? Yes. AOV has a really good start, though. The 2-piece, I think, has a multiplier, like a 300% multiplier. The 4-piece has like regen and survivability. So the whole way throughout progression, it's a really strong start, I think.
Yeah, so I'm knee deep into this season. I just keep blasting it, and I just keep remembering the unbelievable power of the God DH, how it's just ruling the world and everything. So I'm just wondering, do I just make a God DH and destroy everything for 2 days and get everything in the world and then switch over? So that's what I have my eye on. Yeah, POJ, as Matt mentioned, especially when it's fully powered, especially when you can put on Shenlongs with the 4th cube slot, as long as Shenlongs works, is going to be pretty insane as well.
But the way the question was posed, didn't you guys in the notes for this episode actually ask, do you think that the inclusion of the new sets is logical, and does it make sense that they get added to the rotation because I was thinking about that more than anything else. Like, does it make sense that the new sets get added to the Hadrig's Gift rotation as a whole? So what do you think about that?
So I think it makes sense. I think they should be in there. People would expect it. The thing is, like, the rotation right now is that it's on a 12. Is it 12 seasons? Wait, I need to think about this. Was it 12 seasons? What was the rotation again? No, it was every 4, right?
There's 4 sets.
And now they are changing it to a 12-season rotation, and not every set will be always there, essentially. So there's a strict order, but one set will be seen one time less often, essentially. That's what they are changing it to. I think that's okay by me. I think for the Wizard, it's Typhon's Veil that will be the least seen. So I'm Gucci with that one, right? So all good. Typhon's Veil.
Yes, so I agree with Matt. I think it should be included. And I think in general, I'm not talking about Wizard here, but in general, I think some of the new sets, especially with some of the items that they added for the Masquerade, for example, are some of the most favorite and most recently played. So I think if they're left out of the rotation, it's going to hurt people more than it will help.
I haven't even used Hadrig in like 3 seasons, and I play a lot of solo. Like, to be honest, but I think it's great for the game, and maybe somebody that missed a season, or maybe somebody that hasn't ever played any of the new sets, they get a chance to, get it and see what it's like to play Mundanugu or AOV. So I think it's overall good, and I'm glad that they added it also, like everybody's saying.
Yeah, I largely
also
agree.
think
I'm not a fan of Hadrig's Gifts. I'd be okay if it disappeared, but I understand that now people come to expect it. There'd be some people that wouldn't even come back to a season if not for Hadrig's Gift. So it just makes sense there's new sets. It's expected that they'd be in there. So yeah, all the reasons you guys said too.
All right.
I actually went back a little bit and I checked. So in patch 2.3-ish, I think, the Seeker of the Light set was added for Crusaders, and in 2.4, Hadrig's Gift was introduced, and it immediately was made part of the rotation. So in a sense, we've waited longer for these new sets to be added to the Hadrig's rotation than some of the older new ones, so to speak. So yeah, I think they should be in there.
Perfect. Well, why don't we move on, because we got a lot to cover. Why don't we move over to the item changes and let Rhykker serenade us with his sweet, heavenly, mellifluous voice.
All right, thanks, Rex. The first is actually a new item, and I believe the only entirely new item this patch. Gelmandor's Marrow Guards. Bone Spear cast from simulacrums deal 400 to 500% increased damage. Obviously, there's implications here for the Carnival Necro. What do you folks think about this?
So when you say Carnival Necro, you actually mean the set, right? The Masquerade of the thingy set, right?
Masquerade of the Burning Carnival.
Yeah, because a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, when they hear Carnival, they think about Witch Doctor because of the Carnival
Carnival.
headpiece.
Carnival.
Oh.
Carnival.
Oh, that's Carnival. My bad. Yeah. My
I call it
bad.
the Masquerade set.
Non-native flip. All right, my bad. Yes. So things to notice is like this. These are the first bracers, right? This is bracer slot, right?
Yes.
These are the first bracers for the Necromancer, right? It's like every class has some kind of bracers. Now Necromancers do as well. It's interesting to see whether or not you can gamble them on level 1. So if they are max requirement level 16, that is very interesting to see. Right now, if you gamble on a Necromancer on level 1, you actually get bracers from a different class. If you get a legendary. Which is kind of stupid, right? It's like there are 2 rules applying to Gadala. One is you have a 10% chance to get a legendary, and the other one is you always get smart looted. So which one of the rules is actually breaking when you gamble on a level 1 Necro, and it's you still get a legendary, you just get a legendary from a different class. So sometimes you get Gundo gear from the monk, sometimes you get bracers from the barb, and so on. So if this is actually a level 1 gamble, and you get the, which one is the level 70 upgrade for the rip weapon? Maltorius Spike,
Petrified
right?
Spike, yeah.
Yeah, if you get that one now, then maybe you're a bit more capable. We'll see.
I mean, got those corpse gauntlets though at level 1. That's
yeah,
God
they're a
mode
bit
already.
Yeah,
they already got enough at level 1. I think
that's true.
But that would have some implications in general for sure.
Yeah. But overall, for the I haven't played the set. Did you guys play the set? I don't see any like large buffs implications for solo or anything here with the new bracers.
Realistically, it replaces either Ogild's or Rosette's Volition, I think, in what has been theory crafted for the Masquerade setup. So I'm guessing Rosette's gets dropped. Damage reduction can always be neglected, I guess, when you're pushing at the higher end with the set. But I think it's a decent change. It augments the flavor of the build. It puts more emphasis on the simulacrums. As long as those guys behave as they should, it should be a good change. It makes it a little more different than the other Necromancer setups. So I think it's good. It's not like a huge change, though, for sure.
Yeah, so last season when I was playing this build on the PTR, I actually had a lot of fun playing it. I'm a little bit biased. I really like Necros. I mean, I'm willing to push solo Thorns, which is not something anyone should ever do unless they hate themselves. But the only problem that I thought with the set is it just didn't do any damage. I thought the survivability was good. I thought the playstyle was good. And I just kept saying on the last PTR, I was like, man, if this build just ever did any damage, I would really enjoy it. So the problem with Necros is Necros don't really have like a very good speedy solo farming build. Yeah, rats are amazing in rats, like the groups. But if you try to play a rat solo, unless you turn the difficulty way down, where you can literally just mow everything, if you get hit by anything, you die. And that's not a fun feeling. I think, especially if they hand you the set in the beginning, I think the multiplier on these bracers is going to be enough where you can put this on and actually farm solo with a Necro and actually enjoy life. So I think it will be pretty good, at least for speed farming for Necros.
Interesting. Well, we shall see.
I must be the one who's most excited about this. I know that the Masquerade set, it's like the definition of mediocre. It's not going to top the leaderboards, but I had not found a Necro build that I enjoyed, that I actively enjoyed playing for years. This set comes along, terribly underpowered, but I was having fun with it. This represents a significant damage multiplier. I might actually go Necro this season with the combination of it being the starter set plus this new item. You know, we're getting like 11 GRs. That's still putting it nowhere close to the top builds, but you know, as Rax said, you can farm with it, and you know, sometimes I just want to have fun.
You get to drop Blend of the Dead, I guess, and you love that.
Yep.
All right. Do we want to move on?
Yeah, so the next change here to the Ivory Tower, rapid multiple blocks will now scale the damage for Fires of Heaven up to a maximum of 2.5 times damage.
Yes, so a lot of people misunderstood this as a buff, and there are a couple of like mechanical issues with this item. When the item got introduced in 2.61, there was no internal cooldown on the block rate. So if we look at this quick clip from my channel, this is in Brawl, right? We have two Demon Hunters here. They are setting up sentries. They are shooting slow ball lightnings, and I was sitting at 100% block chance, blocking all the time. And as you can see, the Ivory Tower going off, right? It was like, I can't tell you how many blocks per second these are, but I can tell you that the sound of Diablo stopped working. Like, it tried to create so many sound instances for Ivory Tower that just the sound was gone and the game didn't produce any sound anymore, right? And when this got posted on Reddit, Blizzard changed it. They actually applied a quick hotfix, and what happened is that it got an internal cooldown. So I logged into the game, checked it quickly, and saw that it now has an internal cooldown of 12 frames, which means you only get to see five Ivory Tower procs per second. I was very sad about such a hidden nerf, essentially, without really communicating it. So the best thing to do, always the best thing to do, is go to Reddit and complain, right? So I did. I made a Reddit post. A lot of people saw it, right? And I was like, there's no way this can get through like this. Just hidden nerf with no comments, no nothing, right? And obviously, since I was a very sad person at that point, I also tweeted, right? And I directly tweeted at Dainty, which was Brandy at this time, for our community manager, and then two devs that I knew. And they answered that, yes, I was out of the office today, but there should be one soon in terms of like patch notes to it. Damage output should be unchanged. Damage should scale with the amount of procs that occurred between ICDs. Meaning, if you actually got a block, then the item would go on cooldown for 12 frames. But each consecutive proc during the cooldown would increase at a stack, and after that you would release all stacks. Right? So if you would do 10 blocks, then you would release a wave for 10 times the damage. But the item never stated so. Right? So this is a hidden mechanic that was in Ivory Tower. A few lucky people knew of this and knew how to play around it, right? Which explains why Ivory Tower had so incredible damage spikes when playing it in solo. If you did like a lot of blocks per second in like a, for instance, if you're standing under Herald of Pestilence, which is the Blighter guy who does the thing in the ground, right? If you were standing in the middle of it, then you blocked quite a lot. You only saw one wave, but that wave was hitting for like hundreds of stacks essentially, right? And it was obliterating everything. And this is also one of the reasons why Olash was so good, because of all the blocks that were happening. You didn't see many waves, but they were hitting very hard, right? And they stated, our engineers weren't too happy when they saw your video. We wanted to make sure whatever we didn't affect the effectiveness of the build. And that's about it. That's how they changed it. This is something that has been changed now. They actually put a cap on it. So this is not a buff. This is a significant nerf for Ivory Tower overall. It's now capped at 2.5 times the damage, wherein before it was uncapped. So this is a very important thing that people should understand, especially if you're a Crusader. This is not an Ivory Tower buff. It's a significant nerf to the build, and you will see solo Crusaders perform significantly less, the ones that incorporate Ivory Tower.
And play the sad horn music. I think.
Gotcha. But yes, that's
the good news is that it's not the only way to play this build.
Correct.
So
it's not the only way to
you have options there. It's still going to be a very, very strong build, I believe.
Sure. Yes.
So
just the uncapped multipliers are not really the way to go in Diablo, right? So we have seen uncapped multipliers for quite some time, and especially uncapped multipliers that are hidden behind like a mechanic that is not displayed in text form. That's always an issue, right? All right.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Bone Ringer nerf, right? Where they just let the command skeletons damage just scale infinitely, and once they took that out, it's like, okay, well, thorns, I guess.
There goes this one.
That's true. That is true. There were also other abilities. There was Spectral Blight Flame Blades, which had uncapped stacks, right? For each enemy hit, you would get like a buff for 5 seconds. If you hit 60 enemies with one swipe, you do it 5 times, you have like 400 stacks, and then you click a fire ability, and that one is pretty kick-ass. They capped it to 30. But uncapped multipliers, usually we're going to use those pretty well. All right, want to continue? Mental of Channeling?
Yeah, so they're undoing their previous nerf. Remove the 1 second startup before the power takes effect.
Great quality of life, hey?
Yeah.
Even like Ren Barbs, rapid fire DHs. Pretty cool. I mean, it's overall, I think, a good thing to put it back.
I agree.
Yeah. The windup was just noticeable and unnecessary, really. It's just hurting channeling builds in a way that doesn't really make that much sense.
It was implemented originally in an attempt to kill the Bazooka Wizard, correct?
True.
Correct. There happened a lot of collateral damage for the Wizard class to attempt to get Bazooka nerfed. Funny enough, also for other classes, according to Mental of Channeling. So fixing Bazooka, that was the Mental of Channeling instance that you see here. And now they are reverting that one on Mental of Channeling. I think it's good. It's easier to play like this and more usable. All right.
And next change is
the big one.
What was that?
Now it's coming up on a big one.
Oh, yes. The Etched Sigil. While channeling Arcane Torrent, Disintegrate, or Ray of Frost, the damage of your Energy Twister and only Energy Twister is increased by 200 to 250, and you also cast Energy Twister and only Energy Twister every second. Big rework here.
Big rework indeed.
More trumpets. My poor Meteor Shower Wizard.
Yes.
So sad. It's like one of my favorite builds ever. Yeah.
Right? There's like a lot of people in my chat also really enjoyed Tarasha Meteor channeling, right? And this is like collateral damage for the sake of changing at Sigil. To me, this is like a wizard nerf like removing a global multiplier on their class, increasing it by a bit, and then only giving it to Energy Twister. The thing about Energy Twister is that this is an area damage heavy skill, right? We always want to play area damage with like AoE ticks, very good density pulling, and high area damage. Well, anything that is casted from Edge Sigil does not proc area damage. So there's like a counter synergy there. And the next thing is it actually removes a global multiplier from the wizard class. This is a straight up wizard class wide nerf again. Sure, the fantasy of Twisters is very strong. It has been something that was very present in Season 5 and 6. We played a lot of Energy Twister back in the days. I was very happy sVr in those days, can tell you. I don't think Twisters are really strong in its current iteration. Once again, there are a couple of things that still need to change for it to be good. I'm not really happy about this change. I'm not sure how you guys feel, but I'm really not happy. And the main reason really is that once again there's collateral here, and it's Talrasha channeling Meteor, one of the most relaxed and best beginner guides for wizards by far, like by a large margin. I really hope that Blizzard considers to merge the you cast a Meteor every second. When you channel, that it somehow gets merged into the Talrasha pieces, be it a 2-piece bonus, 4-piece, or 6-piece bonus. I'd be very happy and very, very an advocate of that one.
So I have like small notes for the show that I've written down just for things that I think about the items. And for Etched Sigil, I have 2 words. Too narrow! ! So I think they narrowed down this item a little too much. Having the freedom to have every spender being cast by it, just sure, it made it omnipresent in so many builds, but at the same time, you had at least 5 builds that hinged on this power, and now it's reduced to Energy Twister, as you say, and Energy Twister has issues of its own. So not only does it cull those builds, as you said, but it also has its own bag of issues related to Twister. And yeah, I hope something gets done and something is considered to make Etched Sigil maybe not as ubiquitous with channeling-based builds, but at least available for Meteor.
Yeah, there's so many offhands you could add a Twister power to. You didn't have to use the Edge Sigil for that, you know? You could add builds without taking away builds, basically.
Sure.
You know? You make us want to not play a channeling build by just giving us more options versus forcing the hand, you know?
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback on everything that was said, sVr brought it up, and I think Deadset was kind of alluding to it as well. One thing that I was thinking about, like when I zoom out from it, is like the philosophy of general multipliers versus specific multipliers. So what I was thinking about is, so the advantage of a general multiplier is you can play more builds with it, right? You can apply it to more things. You run the risk, though, of having things like Swart's Necklace or Convention of the Elements, which are just these like general multipliers, which are just so strong that you just always get them, and it's just like, okay, what real choice do I have? If I'm playing in groups, I have to have a Swart's Necklace, either wear it or cube it 99% of the time. There is no real choice there. But the problem is, as Deadset and Blood were pointing out, is when you take one of those general multipliers and make it a specific one, not only do you kill potentially other builds, but you're essentially choosing what build we're going to play, right? Like we pretty much have to play Twister now, right? And enjoy that. And so then if you make that philosophy change, I'm not even sure which one's better, but if you move from the general multiplier to the specific multiplier, then it's like, well, where are our other legendary powers, our other specific multipliers to play all the builds that were killed? And that's a lot of work, right? And that's very hard to balance, because then even if you make the multipliers, then they have to be like balanced, so they're equal. So then it is actually a choice, because if one is 15 tiers higher, it's still not really a choice unless, as Rhykker said earlier, you want to play for fun. So the whole like I was thinking about the whole philosophy of it, of like general versus specific multipliers and how you would balance it. And what I concluded was, I never want to be a game developer ever, because I'll never get it right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair,
It's hard.
that's kind of what I meant when I said it's more a nerf to the wizard class overall, because you removed the global multiplier, right? It's like, and you kill off, like as Bluddshed said, the Tarasha Meteor channeling.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
I think a good question is raised here on a philosophical level. Do we feel that the core original design of the Death Wish Etch Sigil combo was good or bad design, given that it sort of led, as Deadset was saying, to becoming ubiquitous amongst wizards, where it's like, well, I don't know what else to do. I'm going to work this in because it's just such great multipliers. Let me turn whatever build, if I can fit in channeling, I turn to channeling. Here's a Hydra build, but it's channeling too, because we can't ignore these multipliers.
I would say that's bad. And when you
Right.
have no choices, that can't be the right answer, right? So I think this might be Blizzard's attempt to get away from that. Maybe the solution doesn't feel too good right now, but maybe a couple patches later, some more changes later, it could feel good. But having one choice, I gotta fit my Squirts necklace in. I gotta fit my Death Wish and Etch Sigil in, even if it has nothing to do with the style of the build. I have a hard time believing that that could be the right answer.
I will also say global multipliers and so strong global multipliers on these items, bad thing. With the consequences that we just discussed. Bad thing. That's it.
Yeah, it's bad overall. Like when you have that kind of stuff. But it's like if all you have is baked beans every day and then they take that away, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, God damn, what am I gonna eat now? It's dead, you know? Like
That's
there's no
correct.
right?
I mean, follow-up questions, and I know you haven't answered yet, that's it, but follow-up question directly, like, would you say that for Wizard to become better, it needs to get worse first, which means Death Wish needs to go? Like, since everybody here is essentially, or so far, most people have been saying, global multiplier is not a good idea, would you say Death Wish also needs to go? I personally would say yes, Death Wish needs to go, and then something else needs to happen to the class to actually get more variety in there. That's my take on it. How do you guys feel about that one? Like, Etch Sigil is gone, which, okay, but Death Wish?
Well, I agree with you, because I was like, I think LOD Hydra is going to be amazing next season. Some people were asking me, they're like, why do you think Hydra is going to be amazing next season? It doesn't even seem to change. It's like, you get to cube Death Wish. I mean, that's incredible just on its own. And I was just like, that's enough, believe me, to just plow everything. So I think when something is that strong and it's just all damage, it's like, oh man, it reminds me of the Necro weapons, which are, some of them are just so stupidly good. It's like, I don't know,
I was going to make a parallel to the Necro weapons, and their powers at least are somewhat comparable to each other, and you can either branch your build out into poison, or you can make use of the bone armor abilities of Scythe of the Cycle. There is a little wiggle room there, whereas with Wizard, the only multiplier that really sticks out and is very general and can be applied across many builds is really the Death Wish and Sigil combo. So I feel bad whenever we sacrifice a more generalist power, because those feel the most liberating and more attuned to the spirit of experimentation with the game. So you can take the skills that you like and try to work off of them. I totally understand that when an item is that much stronger than the others, it becomes too prevalent for the class and defines the way it's played. But I remember a talk by, I think, Wyatt Chang a while ago, really a long time ago at this point, about the omnipresence of Ring of Royal Grandeur, which is a very, very powerful item, and at the time was considered poisonous to the community because everyone was forced into Act 1 bounties, right? But to him, and it's a philosophy that does make sense, it was just because there were no other competing alternatives for the slot at the time. So does it make sense that, say, the Etched Sigil or the Death Wish retain their power, but other items get added with comparable bonuses and maybe scale off of other factors, maybe not channeling a particular skill, but say, just spitballing here, but let's say they consume your energy armor duration, vaguely reminiscent of the bone armor
yeah,
side of the
Side
cycle.
of the cycle, yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, is it a matter of the Death Wish being too powerful, period, or is it just there aren't enough items that scale from other factors in the game?
So just in comparison, Deathwish is a 4.25 global multiplier. We have way bigger multipliers on other classes for other items. So no, I don't think that's the issue. It's like, it is really just because Wizard is so scarce in this end. There's just not much that you can do. We have a lot of items that have either no multiplier, so to speak of, or really good defensive stuff. But that's about it. The only thing that we had for actually true and very good DPS is either Shantoto, which got nerfed recently, like 2 patches ago, or, and that's it, it's Deathwish and Edge Sigil, and ES is now gone out of the equation. So I agree with you, it's way different on other classes. I think Necro, even though Necro has a very powerful cube with the weapons, it's interesting to me because on Necro it's like, all right, I play Tragouls, where do I get my curses from? Right? It's like this. Do I get a curse from a group member? That works, right? You can have somebody else apply a curse for you. Do I self-cast curse? I actually manually cast a curse, or do I curse with the Grimscythe itself, right? Like, you have choices on how to play around this one. I have 3 different ways for you to activate this weapon. Deathwish? You better channel, boy. There's nothing else you can do. It's like, right? It's like, hold down and do nothing else, right?
Maybe you can work with Archon one day.
Maybe it can work with,
man.
I mean,
A little bit.
Sure. Solo 150s, let's go.
Let's do it.
Yes, that's true.
It could also remove the teleport GCD. That'd be that too. Wish list.
Yeah, so you can be faster. Sure.
Like D2 teleports, yeah.
D2 teleports, oh yes.
I just can't shake the feeling that Edge Sigil and the sword, the Death Wish, are getting on the chopping block without addressing the bigger issue. That's it, really.
I feel the way that they're going right now, it's like remove Death Wish and then give us like a lot of other powerful choices. So I feel like at this current state, commit to removing ES and DV, reinstate Meteor channeling on Tuttle Russia itself, and then 3 playgrounds to make it better now. Unfortunately, I'm on the side. It needs to get worse for Wizard for it to be really better, and that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, and another, I think, very important thing that like Deadset and Matt kind of brought up together is when we introduce these new weapons, these new multipliers that are of equal power, they also need to be different playstyle wise, right? You can't be always just run in and channel, and that's how I play Wizard, right? Because Necros have to cast their roulette of poison skills for their nairs. They have to run in when they have no business running in, and bone armor to keep things up, or they have to find a way to apply the curse, and then you get this amazing power. It would be very interesting to see, what kind of different fantasies that Blizzard can come up with these new weapons that the Wizard class could, actually not only get the same multiplier and play different builds, but actually have the play style be different than standing there and channeling something.
All right.
So like if you had like a, go ahead. Oh, if you had like so for instance, it would be like if it was like a fire skill or something, is what you're saying. So like all fire skills, not necessarily standing still or channeling or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like something with like Deadset's idea. Somehow it works together with one of your armors, for example, and it consumes it, or something like that, or something to do with fire. Like if things that are burning or something give you different powers or anything. I don't know. People are way more creative than I am. I just put together the builds and try to blast. That's all I'm good for.
I think there's definitely a place for generalized damage bonuses, as Deadset was saying, right? It allows for more creativity, more freedom, and mixing and matching. I think what you want, though, is that the more generalized the damage bonus, the less significant it is. A specialized usage case should always be better than a generalized one. Otherwise, why would you ever take the specialized use case? And so in the case of Etch Sigil, it's more general than what we're accustomed to, but it's not completely general in that at least you still have to channel. I think a big issue was actually that these 2 items effectively acted as a 2-piece set, where you rarely used one without the other. It was Etch Sigil, and Death Wish. And a big part, as you guys were outlining, the Wizard just didn't have a lot of good alternatives. So, yeah, a better solution probably would have been to bring in those alternatives without needing to nerf into the ground what exists. But it's easier to nerf than it is to bring in a bunch of new items. So,
True.
This might just be step one. But I agree with everything that you just said. Big time.
So a very good point about it being a pseudo 2-set. I didn't see it like this, but it's entirely true.
Yeah.
It's a pseudo 2-set that is, technically speaking, one of them is cubable. So it's a bit stronger than a pseudo 2-set, but yeah, it is a pseudo 2-set. That was a very good point. Yeah. All right, you want to move on? Anyone else want to say goodbye to Etch Sigil? All right.
Gonna miss you, man.
Don't make me cry.
Tal Russia meteor channeling died for this, okay?
So the Fragment of Destiny. Fragment of Destiny wand. Your signature spells attack 50% faster and deal triple damage, but now you also gain a spectral buff whenever you land an attack with a signature spell, and Hydras deal 25 to 30% increased damage for each spectral stack, max 10 stacks for 300% damage multiplier.
Hey, Stricken stacking on LOD Hydra. Any Hydra players next season? Death Wish in the cube. Massive
Yes.
Stricken.
Yes.
I'm telling you guys, it's going to be good.
Yes.
Not the set, but there's going to be a buff to the set. That doesn't matter. LOD Hydra, I'm telling you. It's going to be good.
So yeah, it's worthwhile noting that the spells attack 50%, or sorry, signature spells attack 50% faster is a separate speed coefficient to Spectral Blade, and so is Shame of the Delsera. So let's assume you're sitting at 1 attacks per second, and you equip Fragment of Destiny. You will have 1.5 attacks per second with Spectral Blade. If you furthermore equip Shame of Delsera, you'll not be sitting at 2 attacks per second, but at 2.25. So it's 1.5 times 1.5. They are not additive, they're multiplicative, and they are separate.
So it's like
speed
focus and
coefficients.
restraint.
It's like focus and restraint, exactly, right? Exactly the same idea, just in attack speed, right? And this means you reach bonkers attack speed levels. There's like this incorrect statement in the community, or incorrect knowledge, that you cannot attack faster than 5 attacks per second. That's not correct. You can if you have speed coefficients, and these are speed coefficients. So you can go up to 5.0 attacks per second times 2.25 in this case. So technically you can have, 5, I should have done the math in prior, it's something above 10. You can have something above 10 Spectral Blade hits per second, and it actually decreases your Stricken ICD. So yes, you can get your easy peasy lemon squeezy 12 Stricken stacks per second if you go Shame of Delsera plus Fragment of Destiny. Is this like something like a new boss killer for Hydra and LOD Hydra maybe? Yeah, Lightning Hydra boss killer looks acceptably well at this point, but we still bow down to the Crusader kings of RGKs. Can't beat Crusader, and won't beat Crusader even after 4 nerfs on AoV. They are still the state-of-the-art boss killer at this point.
This is gonna be my last plug for LOD Hydra. Okay. The last season, I think it was last season, I was doing solo and I was wearing squirts and I was standing on an arcane beam and I didn't lose squirts.
Yes.
You literally can't die.
Yes.
Does massive damage and is gonna shred the boss. Any Hydra players in chat?
Yes,
gonna be amazing.
That's true. LOD Hydra is very tanky. I think you played LOD Hydra a bit, Rhykker. I saw you tingle around with it.
I started with Typhon. You told me about how much you hated and how much better LOD would be, and I love LOD, absolutely.
This was off stream, by the way, just saying. Yes, it's correct. I gave you the statement.
It's that Orb of Infinite Depth makes it really tanky, for sure.
Yes.
That extra 80%. Yeah, I was playing hardcore with LOD Hydra, and I didn't even use cheat death a few times, because you don't really even need it, honestly. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I had a couple of people in chat stating, like, for next season, if you actually include the Orb of Infinite Death, you can actually equip Shimizu. Like, you can try to only live off your shields. Like, you go down between, like, 20% to activate Shimizu, 100% crit chance, and then you just play with the shields, so you never heal. That will definitely be possible with Orb of Infinite Death and Cube. Is it a
'Cause
good
at this
build?
point-
Hell no. It's not good. It's not a good idea, but it's fun. It's actually a Shimizu build that works.
Yeah. You do lose the edge sigil, but this more than makes up for it, really. It also makes up for the defensive loss, if we can even talk about that, from the loss of mantle of channeling, just dropping the channeling aspect of the build. You now have the option for barrier blades to add to your Ash Nagars. It's insane in terms of tankiness. It's so
Yes.
good.
So barrier blades.
It's
plus-
actually going to be my LOD Hydra season. I haven't played it
Yes.
still, and I think this is
Nice.
a prime time to do that. Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, what do you notice? Spectral blades with the barrier blades gives you like 4% shielding, right? Make that 8% with the bracers, and then you attack 10 times per second. That's a lot of shielding per second that you get. Yeah, will be pretty tanky. So for all the hardcore players, that's probably your build. All right.
One thing I want to ask. All right, so because in the coming season we'll be able to have Fragment of Destiny and a Death Wish, but going forward, is there any usage case, realistically, where you would opt for the Fragment of Destiny over a Death Wish, given the multiplier on the Death Wish is more?
So the multiplier, it's what is it?
325, right?
3.25, I
Yeah,
think.
325. Yep.
So it is a 4.25 multiplier, right?
Correct,
Because it
yeah.
increases by, and this one is a 4.0. But, and here's the big but, Spectral Blade for the boss with, it always gets you, right? Right?
Big butt.
The big but.
Tell me more,
yes.
Matt.
Because of Stricken on the boss, you really want to have the Fragment of Destiny. If you do solo Stricken on the boss with Fragment of Destiny, it's too much of a time save. The additional damage on the Death Wish, it is more damage, will not make up for the time that you save on the boss via the Stricken stacks. And that's it.
Fantastic. Next on the agenda, we got Valthek's Rebuke. Energy Twister now travels in a straight path and deals 300 to 400% increased damage.
Back to Twisters. Again, we're replacing Death Wish here, right? With an even stronger bonus. Even gets you that elusive straightening of the Twisters that made Valthek interesting, but no one ever got a way to fit it in. Now it's going to be a mandatory part of the build. We just question its strength still, I guess.
Yes. Even though like you have like now a deterministic path, it's still not really good because it goes against your audacity. At some point they are kind of out of range of audacity, and then you kind of want to power hungry, I guess, the passive for the multiplier. I'm not really happy about this item. I think what it should actually do is I'm okay with the multiplier, but I would actually Energy Twister now gains the rune of Wicked Wind. That's what I would do. So they are actually spinning in place now.
Yeah, as they're traveling, when they hit like the wall, they dissipate, right? Because you
Yes.
can't stack
Correct.
on PC.
Correct.
So it can hurt you if you're not in the middle of a zone, or it's kind
Correct.
of weird in a way.
That is correct. You need to actually care a lot in which direction you shoot them because they can't bounce off walls anymore. Or sometimes they get stuck and then they disappear, right? So you can lose a lot of damage by actually casting in a way such that they would touch a wall at some point. And then they would disappear. So right now I'd advocate for it to gain the Wicked Wind rune, which means, back in the days we stacked Twisters on corners. This would be implicit stacking anywhere, which makes it very strong. There's a chance that this makes, it's a huge buff to the build itself. Is Wizard gonna be S tier then? Maybe, but for this build to work, you also need S tier servers, and we don't have these. They are out of stock.
So what about the Waller affix? My least favorite affix. Does that also just make the Twisters disappear? Because if so, when you pull 6 elites on a festering, I can guarantee you from empirical evidence, at least 4 of them will have Waller, at least every time I play.
That's a very good question. I don't know. Let's just say yes, so it needs to be changed.
A preemptive request, just make it go Waller, please. Nah, I like your idea more. The Wicked Wind is tempting for sure.
It is tempting.
Do you miss that meta? That's like more of a philosophical question for you guys. Do you miss that stacking corner based get them all
The
there.
stacking's cool, but going to the right angles of every map is so obnoxious. That was like a year and a half meta. Yeah, I didn't like it too much. Just because we were standing in the corner, it looked weird, like some kind of Blair Witch Project scene or something. So I don't miss it too much.
Yeah,
that's true. That's actually funny. Like 4 characters facing the wall, and everything is right here, guys. Don't worry.
I get the skill-based aspect of that meta, but yeah, it was weird, man. Just thinking about it makes you uncomfortable. But if Wicked Wind is added, you can actually not hug the corner so much. Just have to pick the right location. I don't know. I like the idea of having a dedicated Valvex Rebuke item that's desirable for Energy Twister builds, but the traveling aspect, it's a bit of a questionable part for ET. Yeah.
I mean, this is not the right way to approach the answer, but in every single meta, it seems like you're always doing something weird, whether it's Blair Witch Project in the corner or throwing a sideways snowball on a bridge, or it's always something, right? So I just always expect it's never, yay, zone into a festering, walk down the middle, use my abilities in the middle, everything's going fine, and get the clear. It's like never that, right? So I'm always used to there being some weird, ridiculous mechanic to squeeze out 5% more DPS. So I'm not saying I'm excited for Blair Witch Project Diablo 3, but it's always something, man. It's always something.
You're just like, bring it on. It's gonna be crazy, and yeah, just bring it on.
One thing real quick, just so everyone knows, we need to get through the rest of these items in about 30 minutes. I would say we're kind of on pace there, but we got about 30 minutes to get through the rest of them, so we can stay on time and not keep people here the whole day.
All right.
All right, so
continue?
the Winter Flurry, I guess?
Yep.
Yeah.
Enemies killed by cold damage have a 25% chance to release a Frost Nova, and now your Hydra deals up to 150% increased damage to enemies in a blizzard.
I like the pronunciation of wizard, which probably raises a point here already. Like, who else felt weirded out by reading blizzard and not reading Frost Nova?
So I was hoping that did I miss something? Like what? There was a reason for it, right? I just don't know what it is. Does anybody know?
It's really weird, yeah.
The dice rolled and the dice rolled. That's it.
There's 3 spells on one item. It's weird.
Yeah.
What skill did you have? Blizzard. Okay. We'll put
I think the thought was, guys, our company's named Blizzard. No one ever uses this skill.
Make it happen, yeah.
True. To be fair, I wanted to have a Blizzard set and not a Hydra set, so maybe they're just making fun of me in retrospect. Who knows?
I mean, that's possible.
I tried it. I made like a Spectral Blade, Hydra, Winter's Flurry build. Like, obviously we don't have the PTR, but I kind of simulated it on stream. Sure. It doesn't play as bad. You'd like use Arcane Dynamo, and you cast your Hydra, and then you cast Blizzard or whatever. It didn't seem as bad, but it's super weird. I kind of wanted the Frost Nova to do like a lot of damage. There's a PoE build like has like, I don't know what it's called. It is like a big glacial area damage. So that'd be cool to have another speed build, since we don't really have a really good speed build. So that'd be cool if it did Frost Nova and Hydra damage or something. Enough to run T16 or something.
What I scribbled down before the cast was, this is a way to reintroduce Blizzard back into the rotation of skills in the meta, but it's in a forced and not in a natural way. So I'm not sure that I agree with the way this is done. It's really a 3 spell item. I think Blood pointed it out. No one's talking about the big thing, It's a 5% buff to the chance of releasing a Frost Nova, It used to be up to 20%. Now it's up to 25%. Man. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say,
I actually missed that.
You're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Yeah. Interesting.
It makes more sense if it was just talking off the extra damage was coming off the Frost Novas, but yeah, I guess they're just trying to reintroduce underused skills rather in builds in the wizard.
But
roster.
Is this the right way? It's like just a
No.
catalyst ability, right? It's like you need to click this button so something else does something for you that you actually want to have. It's like we have Blizzard for the sake of Blizzards.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. What I dislike about this one is like usually Hydra is an area damage build, and Blizzard is an AoE ability with a fairly high tick frequency. So we might come back to a solo push setup where you start lagging in solo. So you might do a very good pull, you set up your Hydras, they are attacking very high frequently because of your pain enhancer, you're standing in there with Spectral Blade, you have insane attack speed, you are invincible, and then you cast a Blizzard, and then you see slowly like the game FPS dropping, ping going up, and then you are like, let's hope I survive.
My first thought while seeing the changes to Hydra, I'm like, oh good, I can drop a channeling skill. I'm freeing up a skill slot. Oh, okay. Blizzard's getting that skill slot. I guess the positive thing is it's more active playstyle to be aiming a Blizzard at enemies rather than just channeling into whatever. I guess that's the silver lining.
I don't know. I just thought I was missing something. I'm like, one of the people smarter than me will point out to me what I'm missing. I don't get it, Blizzard, but yeah, it doesn't feel good to just vomit a skill in there. And Matt brings up a good point. The game is already laggy enough, right? And that's how solo pushing is. You make a gigantic pull. You got a Blizzard and then drop your Hydras. I mean, luckily we're playing LOD Hydra, which is pretty much invincible, because otherwise with any other build, you would probably be dead instantly.
So do you guys feel like we should, like, if we could decide, right, would we remove Blizzard and just use Frost Nova here?
I would say so. The item is flavorful enough as is. It's always been about releasing that Frost Nova, and it makes more sense this way. Maybe even up the percentage chance if it's going to be reliant. I mean, if the Hydra damage is going to be reliant on the Frost Nova, but shoehorning a third skill in here just seems rather strange.
To be fair though, there is a very nice synergy because the Magistrate Hydras are casting Frost Nova by themselves, right?
Sure.
So there would be this cross synergy there. Like you could see a bigger plan to it, right? It's like hit by Frost Nova and they cast Frost Nova for you, so there's like an obvious connection here, right? So
Right.
And one thing about the item itself is you have to kill an enemy, right? In order to have the chance to trigger a Frost Nova. So that makes certain mob types hard. I mean, some mob types, you pull them like Transformers, you pull them all together. Okay, I'm ready to do my damage. All right, where's my Frost Nova? Wait, I can't kill anything for 5 minutes because it's Transformers. So, I mean, it might be a scenario where in some mob types you just have to take Frost Nova, or unless obviously the Hydras give you the Frost Nova automatically. But enemies killed by cold damage is a lot different than enemies hit.
That's true. Also, you don't really like what is doing cold damage in that setup. You usually play Fire Hydra, and your Spectral Blades are arcane.
Yeah.
That's about it. So who gets the final blow with cold? Nobody. It's unfortunate.
Yeah,
again.
killed is the culprit there.
Yeah, killed is definitely
wording of the item.
This item's got an identity crisis, for sure.
Killed by cold damage? To enemies in Blizzard?
Yes, that's
with
true.
my Hydras?
In all seriousness, I think the only reason that they added Hydra was because the item is called Winter Flurry. I think that's the only reason. Also, like Flurry, like a McFlurry, and Dairy Queen calls it a Blizzard, I think. Maybe, I think it's just because of the name of the item, honestly. I think that was the
Yeah, that's probably behind the scenes. Yeah, they went to get lunch one day, came back, finished the patch. Yeah, that's probably what happened.
My non-native European ass does not understand this reference.
They're ice cream. They're different names for ice creams that we eat to get fat.
Gotcha. Moving on.
Wizard Spike. Performing an attack has a 25% chance to hurl a frozen orb, and Arcane Orb deals up to 350% increased damage.
Notice how it doesn't say killed. Better.
Yes,
better.
Indeed. So the Frozen Orb from Wizard Spike does not proc area damage. It does not have a proc coefficient. So the DMO variant where you self-cast, those ones are still significantly stronger when you hit a very dense pull. But the multiplier itself is pretty nice, hence it will be incorporated, I suppose. I haven't really looked into it yet, but looks like a decent enough Frozen Orb DMO buff to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be shoehorned into the build regardless. Maybe shoehorned is the wrong word here. It's gonna be placed there for sure because I looked up the older Frozen Orb builds, and usually they have an Orb of Infinite Depth there, and this is a much stronger item in the same slot. So I guess even if they don't work on the proc-based Frozen Orb, it's still gonna be
it's like a flat increase. So
yes, So,
although I would prefer if they do work on the procced Frozen Orb, maybe up the percentage, make it work with area damage, as you said, work off skill modifiers.
I mean, so there is a certain, like, I understand the thing about wanting certain item procs to proc area damage. Usually we have the rule procs do not proc procs, right? And there are some exclusions to this. For instance, Belt of the Truth. The bombardment from Belt of the Truth can proc area damage, but it's not self-casted, but it can. And then we have the Gears of Dreadland set, right? The 4-piece that is shooting generators. That one can also proc area damage, which didn't used to be the case in the first iteration. Usually I'm against breaking this rule because let's assume you're doing this change. You know what comes to my mind straight up immediately is playing some bullshit Archon build with insane attack speed. And now those Frozen Orbs that come when you're an Archon actually proc area damage. Like, I don't want to see this. Like, I really don't want to see this. It's like, hey, are you playing Frozen Orb? Yes, with Archon. And I only do damage in Archon by smashing the ground like 1,000 times per second. Like, there's always, like, giving skill products this ability, and then you have Archon on Wizard. Dangerous. But sure. It's already auto-include for the sake of the multiplier. So to me, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is gonna bring the Frozen Orb build up a couple of tiers, and to be honest, I have just this biggest weakness, the biggest soft spot for anything related to Diablo 2. I mean, Frozen Orb, and then we have the Hammered In coming up later. Those would be my builds, even if they're not. If I'm just gonna play for fun and not gonna blast leaderboards, I'll go to anything Diablo 2 related, like Frozen Orb or Hammers, to play. So really happy to see it climbing, and but positive changes coming to it.
Yeah, same. That's why I was like, can they get the same teleport we had in D2 and D3? Because it just gives you those vibes, man. That teleport was amazing, And that's kind of what keeps Wizard behind is their slow animation on teleport, really.
That's true. It is very slow.
I'd say bump the Wizard Spike even more. Don't be afraid of it. Give Frozen Orb some love.
Embrace the Wizard Spike is what you're saying?
Dude, it's Frozen Orb. How can you not love it?
I agree with you. You don't have to convince me.
Yes. My spike is embraced, definitely.
So we have 20 minutes for the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the DMO set, Delzier's Magnum Opus, 6-piece bonus increase from 8,500 to 12,500%.
Cool.
Yay.
Yes.
2.5 GR increase, hooray.
Moving on. It changes nothing
It's a bit
else.
of a roll.
It's like, exactly. It's like, okay.
6-piece bonus increased from 1,300 to 2,000%.
Not playing it. No.
Not playing it. Yep. Always play LOD. Still, like maybe RGK stuff with Lightning Hydra. Maybe, because you cannot lose Hydras on the boss, technically. But
It's the set mechanics.
Yeah, it's the 4-piece.
No.
It's a vicious cycle. You get hit, you lose a Hydra, you do less damage, you take more damage, and it's a vicious cycle from there on. Like, you need to consistently recast Hydras, and once you take damage, you lose damage, and you take more damage. It's just doesn't fit the general concept of like unlimited tiers. And that's where the set fails. So doesn't matter what value it is. Yes, only LOD. That's it.
It's also just a 2.5 GR increase, and I wonder, like, for both DMO and the Typhon's Veil, why go so conservative in a buff? Why buff at all if it's going to be so little? Like they could have easily gone for 5 or more GRs without really getting close to affecting balance in a bad way.
Yeah, that's
So-
true, especially because it's such an easy thing to change, right? Like, there's no mechanic change in here. It's really just the builds that we play right now, like, take the best performing DMO builds, and once you make this change, you will still play the exact same build, it just hits harder. There's nothing else that changed, right? Let's assume what they would have done is on the 2-piece, it's like when you equip the 2-piece, you always have a slow time bubble around you, right? It's the same as when in Archon, right? In Archon, when you click the bubble, then the bubble travels with you. Assume they changed this one. That one is actually harder to evaluate, right? It's like, so is this now, so they don't need to equip the skill anymore? They can play a different skill? Does it mean, like, how many tiers is that, right? That's harder to evaluate. This one is super easy to evaluate, hence I'm very surprised about how conservative it is, given its first iteration. Very conservative, and it's a very boring way to try to make DMO good. For instance, I wanted them to do something with the bubble, like give us a bubble that travels with you, or I don't know, when you teleport, then all Twesters teleport back to you. So stuff like this, right? Something that changes how you play it. But this is just a value change, and I don't like value changes.
I guess they're just being conservative, and then they're going to see what we can accomplish this week on the PTR and then maybe bump it up. That's the only thing I could see, really. They start slow, and then instead of taking it away, right, to just add to it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Makes it word for word. I agree with Blood.
Awesome.
I think
Man,
they're just
I
being
would
conservative.
travel with you. Now you got me whole wanting, and I've wanted this change forever. I mean, it makes so much sense. Archon has it, and it doesn't even care. I mean, it does care about slow time, but not as much as the DMO, where the entire damage hinges on the existence of a slow time bubble. Yeah. Numeric changes across the board. I mean, Rhykker can just knock them out one after the other, and I don't think either of us is gonna say all that much about those changes.
True.
Yeah, I'm good if you just want to machine gun through them, Rhykker.
Let's do the, we're going to skip one. We'll do Armor of a Khan, 6-piece from 1,500 to 2,000. Roland's 4-piece from 13,000 to 17.5 thousand. Again, these are just between 1, 2, maybe 3 GR rises. The one I find more interesting is Norvald's Fervor. That's the 2-piece for the Crusader. 100% to 400%. That's more significant, and I think is going to have more for us to talk about, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the upcoming season theme, where you can cube the Shield of Fury, and then you can equip these two, and all you lose is a Furnace for it, which is, whatever. This puts AoV RGK to a whole different tier. Like, essentially, the last 4 changes to the build were 4 nerfs. This is reverting all the 4 nerfs, essentially, in terms of damage output. It'd literally be like, oh, we have a power pylon, click it. Like, you insta-click, and then you run-rotate the boss. And that's it. And it's even on 150s. Like this, we will see a couple of 20-second fights, even on lower Paragon already, and it's because of this change for the next season theme. On non-season, I mean, you can't incorporate it in a 1 season if I recall correctly, so just for next season.
Yep.
I like it. It buffs Fist of Heavens also. I like Fist of Heaven speeds a lot, and you'll probably be looking at like 109 speeds just with that change, and then obviously the Thorns, right, stuff as well. So I like it because it buffs multiple builds, and it might be a little too crazy strong, but in general, I like the change a lot.
So if the main problem is AoV is already super S tier RGK, and then the creation of this cool item or this cool set, not the creation of it, the buffing of it, just propels it to outrageous levels, but it helps all these other builds and it helps the Crusader class in general. Does it just mean that they have to implement this and go back to AoV and just give it one final axe to bring it down back to human levels? Because it's just been dominating for ever since it's been released.
I would say yes.
Maybe.
Like, sure, I would say yes. Hell yeah. Like the 2-piece on AoV, what is it? It's like doubling 3 times. That's a separate 800 multiplier. It's stupid. So I would say, yeah, like put the axe right to AoV's throat and do it. It's rather surprising to me as a whole concept that we didn't see a single nerf, except for at Sigil, I guess, in the patch notes, right? Like God made it through, AoV made it through again. So maybe they were just very conservative with not wanting to nerf anything right now. Maybe they save it for the second iteration, or maybe, like, you know, after PTR, we never see buffs after PTR. Before the live patch, we usually only see nerfs. So maybe they are saving it for that. I don't know.
It's a little early for nerfs, maybe.
They gave us back some of Lamentation because we cried about it for 2 straight weeks.
True.
Lamented about it.
Lamented. Nah, I see what you did.
Intention.
Yeah, so I guess I don't see the problem with the buff to that necessarily. It looks very cool for the Crusader class, but my God, AoV is just, it's too good. It has been too good. Now it's really, really super too good. So I think they might want to take a look at that.
All right.
Next, we got...
It's fine with the buff. It's just, the AoV that has to change. It's barely been remembered, this 2-piece for Crusaders. It's been out of the public eye for so long at this point, I feel. But yeah, sure. Sorry, go ahead.
All good. So I missed this one when going over the quick insignificant buffs, in my opinion. Secret of the Light, another small buff to the 6-piece. But then our next 2 items here kind of go together for Crusader. Belt of the Trove. Every 4 seconds, down from 6, call down bombardment on a random nearby enemy, and bombardment deals up to 500% increased damage. Then the Mortal Drama, double the number of bombardment impacts, and bombardment deals up to 500% increased damage. Sure no one has anything to say about these?
Bonkers.
Turns out if you give something like a 36 times multiplier, and then you give them also Norvals, which is a ×5 multiplier, then you reach pretty good numbers. The way it looks like, this is like Thorn's Bombardment Crusader, like in the Akan version with a 2-piece of Invoker, is like overshooting bazooka levels in terms of numbers. So if you thought bazooka was an issue, then damage-wise, yes, this will delete yellows like crazy on higher tiers. I think the Belt of the Truth, it comes down every 4 seconds, might be an issue because you can't wait for your COE. Like, everything might die before you actually get to your COE, and you need the COE with area damage to actually kill the yellow. But everything might be gone. So we might
throw it away.
You cannot throw it away, no. No. I mean, it hits a random target around you in your vicinity, and it will, like, 1 barrel will be enough to obliterate the pool, essentially. So I think we might see some super Monka-esque playstyle where the Crusader is pinging somewhere, he runs there, teleports to town, and waits in town. And then right when his COE physical comes in, he comes in, clicks his buttons, and picks up the globes. And we move on. I'm afraid that this might be the optimal playstyle to give the supports enough time to do a good pixel to make sure all yellows actually get deleted and you don't have trailing yellows left over. Might be the playstyle, we shall see. But looking at numbers, very, very strong. Stronger than Bazooka, the go-to trash clearer.
I guess part of the issue is how quirky of a playstyle Bombardment is in the first place, or at least the way it was played, but it's going to be the same this time around, just much stronger. It's basically waiting on a giant cooldown and syncing buffs, and I think, barring a few players that enjoy the mechanical complexities and implications of such a playstyle, very few people enjoy what this kind of build does to the game. So I can appreciate it on a very conceptual level, but not much further beyond that. I don't think I've ever enjoyed Bombardment all that much, the way it's played. And having it be this strong is just the Crusaders' version of Land of the Dead, basically, waiting on the giant cooldown to do your damage and just roaming around the map until that all-important piece falls into place. I don't think anyone should enjoy that, really.
So I played Lon Bombardment, so Legacy of Nightmares in Season 7, and I pushed with it, and there I got rank 1 with it in EU, so I'm very fond of the builds. I've played it a lot, and I love the build, but I think these numbers are significantly overtuned, and I'm very certain when PTR will go live tonight at some point, the first Crusader on non-season will log on and just straight up clear 150 in a couple of keys. Like the first solo GR 150, mark my words, quote me if I'm incorrect, but in the first 2 hours, you'll see a couple of 150 solos.
I like the build too. I think it's good for the game. I just think it's way too strong, basically. Like sVr said, people like Lawn Bomb and Akan Bomb Don Mon thing, right? People like this stuff, and it's cool. It'll help drive the patch, drive people to play. It's just too strong, essentially. It just needs to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know much to say here. I've never played the build. I have the least. I played all the other classes a decent amount. I've really never played Crusader, never had much of an interest. But when we log on the PTR, I'm going to do exactly what Matt said. I'm going to put it together, and I'm going to open GR 150 solo and see how it goes. So we'll get a taste of it tonight.
Yeah.
So next we got Manajuma's Way. Angry Chicken explosion damage increased from 400 to 2,000%.
First thing I'm going to test tonight. Chicken
Really?
Bomb. Yeah,
Wow.
it's so fun. Have you ever played this build with the spider set? It's a lot of fun. You just shift into like a little Cadillac. You shift into chicken. You go pop, and then you shift back. It's great.
Do you think
It's
the
gonna be
pop damage will be enough to actually kill everything? I know in the previous versions you needed your humongoids to kill everything for you, I think, right? Or how did you kill stuff? In the previous
So the
version?
Rhykker set's getting buffed, right? And it buffs hex damage, and then hex Angry Chicken is a hex spell. So it does a lot of damage, actually. I used to do speed 55s like, I don't know, 2016, right? It was like so now with all these buffs, it's 4 times stronger than that. Plus, it's going to 2,000. So I think it'll be enough for T16. Yeah, more than enough.
I think so too. And it's such a fun build. I wholeheartedly agree with Blood. This is one of the best feeling builds in the game. It's such a joy to play, looking at that little chicken exploding into everyone's faces, man.
So the only thing that I didn't like about playing it is that you need to click your speed buffs in like a specific order, right? You first need to Spirit Walk, and then you need to Horrify, and then you click Chicken, and only then do you have all the speed buffs in the chicken form, right? Like you can't chicken first and then click the other buttons because it will throw you out of chicken. So you need to play a specific order, but yeah, it is very zoomy. Like a lot of people neglect, they say like just playing Horrify with Rachel's Ring and all those movement speed buffs is enough, but it actually stacks with chicken. So you can do this buffs first and then click chicken, and then you are like zoom. It's cool if the explosion can actually kill elites. Like if the actual explosion can kill elites, that's pretty cool.
It should. It really should with these numbers.
Yeah, so I kind of felt the way that like Matt was saying. The main thing about the chicken build that I was always the way that I felt about it is you were doing one of two things. You were either moving really fast or you were doing damage, but never both. So like when Mundanugu came out and you're essentially like a sprinkler, right? You run around and I think it's what's the Manitou rune, it's just sprinklering everything, and you're fast. It's pretty damn fast. It's probably not as fast as chicken, but I don't have to do anything. I run and everything dies. So I'm glad to see that the damage is coming up. And again, if the bomb does kill the elites and you have the really speedy version, it's going to give witch doctors another option rather than just watering the plants with Mundanugu.
On to the next two Witch Doctor sets, Arakir and Helltooth. They're getting their damage doubled, about 4.5 GR increase. Then Scrimshaw reduces the mana cost of Zombie Charger by 75 and increases its damage by 6 to 7. Are zombie bears coming back?
I want him to.
I would say
Yeah.
I don't see it.
In my heart, they're coming
my-
back. But yeah, it's not going to be a competitive build, I don't think. But it's going to do better for sure than it used to. Not that this was a very high bar to pass.
It's like the coolest off-meta build you could play, basically, now. And hopefully they get some more love before the PTR is over.
I mean, there is something satisfying with kind of Mufasaing monsters, right? Just hitting them with a barrage of bears. But I don't know. It reminds me. It honestly reminds me of the super old school Diablo 3 days with like it reminds me of the real money auction house, because I just remember witch doctors running around with their fire bats and their zombie bears. I mean, that was the dark ages.
Yeah. There was a point where very, very early on in Reaper Soul's lifetime, I think prior to patch 2.3 even, so it might have been 2.2 or something, when Zombie Charger and the Wall of Death builds were sort of meta for the Witch Doctor. It's been a really long time. I barely remember at this point, but that's how long it's been since we've even thought about Zombie Charger and Zombie Bears as a whole. I hope a lot of the spenders for Witch Doctors get some love. Stream Draw is a nice first step, but there's also plenty others that haven't been ever part of the metagame. So Wall of Death has been out of it for such a long time. Of course, we have the Zombie Bears, and Grasp of the Dead has never ever been considered. So there is a lot to do there. I guess if the team can spare the time, but I would love to see more spenders for Witch Doctor see the light of day.
100%. Buff Zombie Bears, Blizz.
Zombie
If you can
bears.
hear this transmission, yeah, it's urgent.
Was anyone, so in regards to the item, was anyone else like weirded out that they kind of broke convention? It's like the first time that I see 6 to 7 times.
I thought I noticed that everything else has this like number to a number. Skill damage goes to this goes to this.
Yep.
This is just 7 times damage. I definitely noticed it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, it buffs the build by a lot. Oh, okay. Nice.
All right. Do you want to move on, or anyone else? Something on Zombie Bears? Sorry. On Zombie Charge?
It's good.
All right, I'll cover the next 3 together. They're all monk stuff. Feel free to talk about any of the following 3 topics. In his mantra, small buff, 750 to 950 to the 6-piece damage bonus. Shenlong's a bit better of a damage buff from 200 to 350. And then Gun Go Gear is getting a 2x damage multiplier applied to it.
Okay, I play a lot of monk. The Ina's mantra for me is a good buff. I mean, Ina's Wave of Light might be close to LOD Wave of Light and Sun Wuku Wave of Light now. To me, Ina's is still a support build. It's not enough. Shenlong's is really good. It's going to be used in POJ pushing. The problem with Shenlong's is the buff with it. I don't know why this happens, but like 80% of the time that I push with POJ Tempest Rush, when I get my Shenlong's at full spirit, it just doesn't go. And sometimes you can sit there for 10 seconds trying to gain spirit to get it to activate on your cold cycle so you can blind detonate the Tempest Rush. It just doesn't work. So I would love it. I'm super happy that it's getting buffed. POJ is going to dominate, but really hope that we can fix that problem.
Yeah, the way
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
the
ahead.
way I understand this issue, like I can't confirm this, but I think it's like an unfortunate event, scheduling event, where when Shenlong is checking whether or not you had full essence, right at the frame before you had a spending tick of something. So even though it looks to you visually like you are on full spirit, you just 1 frame earlier you spent some spirit somehow with some ability, probably with channeling. And Shenlong right after that is checking, like, no, you're not at full spirit, and then it goes on cooldown and it checks 12 frames later again. So 0.2 seconds later, it checks again. And you are in an unfortunate scheduling where it happens all the time. The easy fix by Blizzard at this point it should activate at 97.5%. Like when you are above 97.5% resources, then it should trigger to give you more of a wiggle room for spending stuff. That's how I understand. Like most people, when they notice after 2 seconds it's not activating, they quickly stop channeling and rechannel again, which sometimes bricks your DPS depending on what build you're playing, which is very.
I think if they redesign it, make it easier, more people will want to play it. Want to play Gen Monk, even though it's squishy. Want to play with the Shenlong weapons in general. It's just like really finicky and a lot of bugs I noticed. So.
Yep, and the Gundo gear, that's probably one of my favorite builds is Juliana's. I love it. I love everything about it. I love it being a ninja and seven-sided striking, blowing everything up. It's definitely moving in the right direction. I just don't think it's anywhere near enough to make it viable at all. It needs way more love than that, and I would really love to see it because that's one of my favorite builds of all time.
It's good for leveling. Hey, you roll bracers level 1. Now you got all 3 of them have a multiplier on it, so it does help a little bit with the leveling process.
That's true. That's true. I didn't think about that.
All right, well, lastly, the Blade of the Tribes now will make Earthquake and Avalanche deal up to 200% increased damage.
Well, I love Barb, my favorite class of all time. Leapquake is not great right now. The 200% increased damage will help, but it's just not enough. There's no way it can compete with Whirlwind, and there's no way it can compete with Frenzy either.
It's cool to cube it though. You don't have to wear it now, right? They took the additive damage and made it a multiplier. Is that what happened? Now you can cube it. So it should be better. So it was like around a 130 build I've seen people push it to. So maybe like, I don't know, closer to 135 territory. And now with the cube theme, you know, who knows?
Yeah, I only know one person that plays this, and it's he's from Europe. He's called Shame, I think, and he played Earthquake to a pretty high tier. I can't recall which tier it was, but he will be happy about not having to wear it. I didn't even catch on that one. I was that's a very good change that they changed that one.
I occasionally see Earthquake enthusiasts pop up on the European leaderboards, but they're few and far between. I hope this change is like Blood pointed out something very important, that this is essentially moving the skill multiplier from the affixes into the legendary power. I assume we have no guarantees, but it would be strange if it's on top of the affix on the item, right? It wouldn't make any sense. Could it be that it retains the skill bonus and also gets this power?
I mean, if they do, then we'll suggest they change it, right? Like that would be the correct community answer here, I would say.
Yeah.
So it will happen either way. Yeah, it will happen either way.
It's I always liked the rotation of Earthquake, and I hope it's just a very satisfying thing to pull off consistently and push with this build, I feel, and I hope it gets more love, really. It's been on Whirlwind for far too long.
All right, so we are doing pretty much right on time with what we expected, so that's really good. So we have a couple of questions here about kind of a summary of some item changes. So just kind of some things that you guys are thinking about. So reading through the items, what is the thing that you guys are most excited for? If you could pick one thing, what is your favorite thing?
For me, the chicken speeds and just having more things to play, right? Because I haven't played Chicken Bomb since 2016, right? I haven't played Lawn Bomb since probably 2016 or 17. I haven't played a lot of these builds, so every time we get numbers and buffs and stuff, it gets me excited because I get to deep dive and play stuff I haven't played in a while. This is really exciting. And then, for me, it's the builds mostly.
Yeah, for me, it's Lawn Bomb or just Bomb overall. Getting some real good nostalgic feelings back from Season 7. I think you should play it in the first iteration because it won't exist in this variant in the second anymore, I suppose. So I'll play a lot over the weekend, and you'll see me play Thorns a lot. That's it.
I think the thing that I'm excited for, and the one that I think will make it through the PTR, is the wizard changes, really, especially for the Hydra builds. Not sure about Energy Twister and how this pans out, but in any case, I was planning on doing a wizard season anyway, so it fits very nicely with my desires and plans. I haven't played wizard in a while in season, and I would love to see the changes to Fragment of Destiny and Winter Flurry, and especially Winter Flurry, if it evolves a little, can turn into a very interesting item. And even as it is, I would love to play some LOD Hydra. That's the one that I'm looking forward to.
I'm excited to see just how insane the Bombardment Satyr is going to be. That's it.
You want to see how hard they're going to nerf it after how well it performs.
Bingo.
So for me, I have kind of a soft spot for Necromancers. I played it a lot, and I feel bad that we haven't really had a farming build. I honestly think that just the bracers that are giving us the 500% multiplier are going to not only make the new set that Blizzard made viable, but I think it's going to give us like a speed option where we can do something. So I'm pretty excited to try that, especially if we're getting it by default. All right, so kind of answered that one already a million times. What on these patch notes surprised you guys, if anything? You read it and we talked about the Winter's Flurry, right? The enemies killed by cold damage, and then you have to cast a blizzard. Was there anything else in these item changes that surprised you?
How long the season's been, even though it's not in the patch notes. A 4-month season's been surprising, right? But lack of nerfs, all right, to answer lack of nerfs surprised the hell, because we've been getting nerfs every, right? PTR, there's been a nerf to something.
Yes.
Wait, what did you think was going to be nerfed? Like the God DH?
God DH, yeah. Yes. And then maybe Satyr, so mostly God DH, really. It's pretty insane.
Yes, same here. God DH. I expected a nerf. Didn't happen.
Same.
Yet. Let's see what we say at the end of the PTR, right? I guess for me, the Edge Sigil change, it was a bit of a surprise, maybe not entirely unexpected, but I hoped that the wizard changes would just go into another direction. The one that we spoke about, really broadening the spectrum of possible generalist buffs to the class and not taking the one generalist buff that the class has and just cutting it down to Energy Twister. So it was a bit of a bad surprise, but there's other changes that I really, really like. I guess this one just took me by surprise the most. I wasn't expecting, because usually Edge Sigil I associate with positive feedback from the community as a whole. Maybe I have a bit of an outdated perspective on it, but I thought it was one of the more interestingly designed items back when it was introduced to the game, and I can understand the growing resentment towards it if it fixes itself so firmly into how Wizard is played. But yeah, I think just the problem lies elsewhere. It's not in the item itself.
And one thing that surprised me is I went into the patch notes thinking, this is the big patch that buffs all the sets that suck, right? And there are some of them here. And I think some of the absolute worst sets in the game were not changed, which I guess I'm just assuming that they'll come later. I was very surprised not to see like Trag'Oul's changed or Rothma's set. I mean, those builds are so terrible.
Yeah.
The Generator Monk, the Raiment wasn't changed, and I was a little surprised not to see any love for those builds. That's something that surprised me, but I hope it's coming in the future, because those builds are, I would say, unplayable. So if let's say the patch notes go live as is, and let's make one change. Let's say they make the Bombardment Satyr not 20 times better than everything else in the game. Let's say with only that change, what do you think you would be playing next season?
Anyone?
I guess I stand by what I picked out already. LO is, but I can understand if things go as is. I would thoroughly understand anyone that goes Crusader.
I mean, I don't feel like I have a choice. I have to do rats for 99% of the season, right? To get to Paragon 98,000.
Yeah.
It's like even if there would be like a let's say they buff Generator Monk, right? And Rex is like, yes, I'm gonna push solo Generator Monk. I'm gonna have fun for 3 months on my rat, and then I can push.
I wouldn't call it fun.
I'll probably play all the new stuff. I usually do like a lot of alts and play solo, push like 7 builds on the leaderboard, and I'll probably do like all the fun stuff, like zombie bears even, and Twister Wiz, and maybe like a melee DMO build for fun, even on a second account because I already have Twister Wizard on one. There's a lot of things you can do, especially with the cube, which we're not really getting into today. But yeah, like even with the cube, it opens up even more builds. So I think I'll play a little bit of everything.
I think I'll stick mostly to Wizard. I still hope that there will be a couple of in terms of iterations. It's the first iteration. I still think we'll see a couple of changes, and I'm in good hopes that some things will change for the better. I hope, and I hope I will get to play a bit more Twister than I expect right now. But I would also be happy to play the new LOD Hydra variants without channeling, even though next season I think due to the cube it will still be slightly channeling. But I'm looking forward to that one. It will be way less Resident Sleeper of a playstyle.
I imagine I'm going to get heavily biased by actually playing the PTR. If I had to pick right this moment, I'd start Masquerade Necro into Poison Scythe.
Poison Scythe, nice. Hell yeah.
Who would have thought? Like Rhykker is going full meta. Poison Scythe Necro it is.
It's gonna be
Temptation is too strong.
You know, to tack on to what Bluddshed said earlier, surprises. I'm really surprised they didn't fix the Trag'Oul's double dipping on the Sims. I mean, I guess we could log on the PTR and it could be solved, but that's the reason why Poison Scythe is.
Sometimes they don't communicate technical changes or bug changes that specifically, right? Like when they change proc coefficient, they never state so. When they change speed coefficients, they never state so because those are too technical for the average patch note reader. But those were like the bugs that enable Poison Scythe Necro are quite significant. There's Trag'Oul double dipping, there's it actually double dipping, there's it actually ignoring the maximum essence cap on your character, and so on. You good, Rex?
I changed my answer to Typhon Wizard now.
What?
Just to piss off SVR.
Alright, dude.
Okay. Okay.
Let's head into something else.
Yeah. Last question on the items. If you could, all right. If you could only make one change, one buff to something here besides changing the LAN bombardment, that's way too good. What would you change? You're at Blizzard. You can make one change. What would you change?
For me, the Winter's Flurry. I would make Winter's Flurry do an obnoxious amount of damage so we can speedrun T16. I think it'd be cool to cast Frost Nova. It wave clears, and then those wave clears, almost like EP. Those wave clears create more wave clear, and you're just teleporting through, frost bombing the whole rift. That would be dope. It doesn't even have to be like a push build. Maybe like 99 GR capable, but yeah, mostly like for T16 to be dope. I think Wizard really needs a fun speed build. I'm sick of Archon, and Frozen Orb's cool, but it's really the teleport. Yeah, so I would fix two things. I would also remove the GCD on teleport and make Frost Bomb thing.
But Blood, in my YouTube comments, people always tell me that teleport is equal to dashing strike. Are you telling me that that's not the case?
Those people should click a channeling pylon for the first time in their life. Right. So I'd be voting personally for DMO. I want to see a more fantasy-like change to DMO instead of a value change. I'm still a big fan of you should permanently have a bubble around you and see where we go from there. That's what I would do. So it's a bit more love in the direction of DMO, but also destroy Deathwish. So
I would just generally vote for changes to items that affects skills that are out of the public eye for a long time, like things that we've all but forgotten at this point. Chakrams for Demon Hunters, Phalanx for Crusader. There's plenty all across the board. Like no one considers channeling skills for Wizard to be anything but procs for Etch Sigil. I would love to see a Disintegrate build materialize at some point. There's just many spenders skills, damaging skills that get sidelined over and over by the same old builds, and sometimes it feels like the sets have locked down certain skills into being meta, and the others are just coasting along and never really getting looked at. This is why I guess I was so happy to see zombie bears get addressed, even though it's not gonna be anywhere near the top ranks. It's just addressing a skill that felt forgotten, really.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk more about the things that aren't buffed, right? Because there's so many builds like Chakram and Shield Bash. Like, there's so many builds in the game, spells in the game that need love. So, like you said, Zombie Bears is a step in the right direction, I think.
Phalanx, man, I miss Phalanx so bad. It's never been good for since the first season. I'd love to see it come back, either as a summoner build or as a spender with the ponies.
Pony
But
Spender
man,
is so fun.
yeah, such a fun visual, throwing out those horses, bumping the monsters back.
I remember that one. You did have Furnace equipped back in the days, right? Was it that one?
Yeah, I think it was.
That's old school.
Old school indeed.
Yeah, if I could only ask for one thing, I'd go for the Julianas, the buff that they gave it. I think they should add a 0 or 2 to the end of that 100, and then I think we'd be talking. That'd be enough for me.
Right, or Heart Slaughter. Levy points it out. Yeah, Heart Slaughter was the other one. But man.
All right, so next we need to read through the seasonal theme. And we are not going to make Rhykker read all the builds because we are very nice around here. But let's read through what the shadow clones are doing and also the cube changes. And then starting with Deadset, let's get our feedback on it and just tell me what you guys think.
So the season theme. Oh.
No. I was asking if it's the season theme that we're commenting on right now.
We are, but let's let Rhykker read it first so everyone can.
Sure.
Yeah, so Shadows of the Past, activating a shrine or pylon will spawn in a shadow clone of your class. This clone will randomly have 1 out of 3 predetermined builds. This clone's power will scale with your character and will last for 1 minute, or if your character dies.
Okay, and there's all the complicated builds that we won't make him read through.
And then for Kanai's Cube, the Kanai's Cube will have a 4th slot this season, and for season only. The 4th slot will have the choices of the first 3 slots, but will not stack with any of them. The intent is to provide players with creative flexibility in their character builds.
Quick side question, how many people actually missed the Kanai's Cube statement until chat was telling you? Only me, okay.
I was scrolling looking for something. I was like blah, blah, blah. Oh, nice. What's this? Yeah, that's pretty much how it went.
Okay.
That was pretty much saved the whole patch notes for me. And that little 3 lines was better than all the other lines.
So, we have those shadow clones now. And even though we have the skills spelled out, there's so many questions about this mechanic. It worries me slightly, but I guess some of those worries will dissipate once we see how the mechanic works. I think Rax made a really good rundown of his concerns about the clones and how they work. I share pretty much all of them. And also, I wonder, like, we have no guarantees how these clones will function in regards to the actual character you're playing. Like, is it going to inherit your items, your paragons, the way your stats are spread out? Because are set bonuses going to be active for the build of the shadow clone? And let's say you have, for the sake of example, the Helltooth set equipped. Is that Grasp of the Dead going to be, or Wall of Death, is that going to be affected by it, or is it just a whole separate character that just spams skills? Is this gonna be percentage based? It's just a lot of questions, really, of how these guys function. And not only that, but I see most of them are using crowd control skills quite a bit, which is potentially detrimental to the way you play out your pushes. Like, I wonder how useful these clones are gonna be, those shadow dudes, and also, are they gonna be undesirable even when you
Oh,
play
it's
out your
gonna be
build?
fun. It's gonna be fun for Z-Barbs trying to pull these mobs, huh? When you
Yes.
probably
For
have
sure.
four shadow clones CCing to hell everything, and then they're just, Pepe hands right there, just looking at
Yes.
the mobs, right?
I can see that happening. It's like you're like end season pushing with your with your crew, and you're setting up on a festering in a good spot, and you decided to play with a witch doctor friend, right? Wrong. And then the Z-Bub goes to the pile and he clicks the pile, and it's like, oh, we spawned build variant free witch doctor who can mass confuse. Okay, he can charm. He has a knockback, so he can Piranado, and additionally he can fear with Horrify, right? So the Bob comes back in the pool. Oh, we got variant free, new game. Like that's how I feel. Is this the sad reality? Maybe Blizzard knows about this, and maybe like the CC that those dudes will apply will not increase the CC for players. So maybe we'll make it like a separate instance, right? We'll have to see, but I'm very scared of the implications via CC as a resource. Barbarians will be very unhappy. What a question. Seeing something like Necromancer or Land of the Dead or something with Frozen Lands here. It's scary stuff. One thing to mention though, you can play around it. Those are not pets. Right? They are not pets. So once they spawn, they have their own AI and they attack something, and when you run away, they will not follow you. They will also not teleport to you. They will not leash teleport like pets to you, right? So technically, you could say, all right, Witch Doctor, run out of the pool now because I'm gonna click the pylon. And then the Witch Doctor runs away or teleports to town or whatever, and then you click the pylon to make sure you don't get a clone in a spot where you don't want to have it. So that's something you could try to do, play around like this. But if that's how the theme plays, then the question is, how good is the theme?
That's exactly.
Yeah, can you go to town? We're about to pop the power pylon. Thank
yeah,
you.
exactly.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
That sounds
It's like
so bad.
yes,
Really.
Yeah. So
Initially I thought that they were taking builds that are staples in the community, but they just seem randomly thrown together. Really, the way I look at it now.
yeah. So to piggyback on some of the ideas, the way that I perceive this is, first of all, I think the hard CCs have to go. I do not want a random thing that I cannot control to spawn and just start moving things everywhere. When you're doing anything, when you're solo pushing or when you're pushing in groups, you usually do things deliberately to get it clear, right? And all this random stuff and this random CC is not going to help. One thing that I think makes a big difference in the seasonal theme and how people enjoy it is their ability to perceive it and maximize it. So let's compare this to the fourth cube slot. Fourth cube slot is you get a fourth cube slot. You can put whatever you want there. So you either put a gigantic damage reduction if you're dying, or you put in your biggest multiplier that you don't have if you want to do more damage. It's very easy to understand or look up a build and say, all right, well, if I'm playing LOD Hydra, what do I switch here? Oh, okay, sVr told me to do this. There we go. Now I'm winning, and now I feel good about it. Here, if we have to remove the hard CC, and if we want to make the three variants roughly equal, we have to give them similar buffs, right? And still, when we end up with all of that, you could say in one way, well, it's very simple. You click a pylon and you get one of these three friends. How complicated could it be? But the thing that I immediately question is, what is the value in having three variants? What if the patch notes had been released and just said, here's the helper that you get if you have Witch Doctor. Here are the skills that they have, and there's no hard CC there. And you just list them. I think the difference between having three choices that have similar buffs and no hard CC and one is really no different in the play style or the value that you get out of the seasonal theme, but it's much easier for people to understand. This is the helper that you get, and this is what they do. So sometimes even with given two choices, even if they're roughly equal, if one of them is more simple, and to me, I wouldn't lose anything. Let's say they make those changes. They get rid of the hard CC. Everything has roughly the same buffs, and just one or two of the skills change. I don't lose anything if you change the number of variants from 3 to 1. I don't know if anybody does. I might be the only one. But I think people, at least that I was around when I was looking at this, they see this gigantic table of skills and builds, and it just seems overwhelming, even if it is just as simple as click a pylon and you get one of these 3.
Would you feel better if you could build him yourself? It would be like an additional follower UI, and you just could click skills together.
Well, absolutely,
Okay.
yes. I would feel better. I don't know about other people, but we could make a guide, throw it on YouTube. Hey, here's all the godly buffs you can take that aren't going to hard CC the mobs, and it's going to give you 80% more damage or whatever it is. It's going to help you survive.
One extra slot in the armory, and it clones that particular slot in the armory. How about that?
Oh, see? Now that's a sick one right there. That's a sick one. That's a good idea.
But yeah, I
really
would
good idea.
piggybacking off of Rex's comment. I think that even just a static build that you can rely on for something, like exactly what he's going to put out in terms of skills, and hopefully no hard CCs, and you can kind of predict the damage you're going to get off of this guy, is going to be received a lot better than a random cluster of skills that are potentially ruining the run that you're currently trying to finish. Yeah.
What about you, Rhykker? You've been awfully silent about this one.
I really like this idea that was just presented. If I'm to be honest, when I first read this, and I feel horrible about this, my very first thought was, I hope they didn't spend too much development time and resource on this. I feel horrible, but that was my very first thought.
Same. I said it on stream live. Yeah, same.
Wow.
I'm like, this is our extra month here? Yeah.
I thought I would be the savage one in here.
But yeah, I think the ability to customize it, that almost solves everything right away. I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know how implementable it is, but when I then saw, we're getting the Kanai's Cube thing, then I'm like, okay, well, that saved the season. Because if it was just the Shadow Clones, I would have major concerns. But even the Kanai's Cube thing by itself, I think would have been enough. But maybe casual players who don't understand that CC could be bad or whatever, they'll just think like, oh, cool, like clones are spawning and doing things. That's nice, maybe this kind of makes everyone happy-ish, but my concern is how much it might affect your guys playing at the top end, your runs. I just can imagine the frustration in having those CCs pull off when you don't want them to, interrupt your flow. I think there's a lot of players, we can't underestimate the number of players who don't have a solid understanding of all the mechanics and just think, oh, well, this is great. They're CCing more enemies. I want to be CCing more enemies. So it's a bit of everything for everyone, hopefully.
I mean, that's definitely true. So the part, like, I want to raise like this conceptual question here. This is the first time we see a two-parted seasonal theme, meaning in prior we had seasonal themes that kind of changed how we build our builds, right? Like giving us Legacy of Nightmares, giving us Rock, giving us unlocked cube slots, and so on. Or we've seen environmental season themes, right? You do something, you get to a certain kill threshold, something procs and does something for you, right? So you were just doing something to trigger something, and you're playing around some environmental effects, right? And this is the first time we have a seasonal theme where they kind of gave us both, right? And I think it's funny, Rhykker, you stated like you were reading for the environmental part and you're like, oh, and then you read for the build changing part and you're like, whew, saved, right? I feel the same way. For me, all the seasons where we actually got something changed in terms of how we perceive our builds, we need to go back to the whiteboard to think about new builds, about new possibilities, is a way higher impact for me in terms of quality of a season than this, you wait for a random proc to occur. If it's snowball, you win, or you need to get 150 kills to trigger this ability. I don't like these effects. So far, we've only seen these types of seasonal themes. So how do you feel, guys, about this? How do you guys feel about this one? Do you have the same feeling? You rather like the seasonal themes that change the concept of a build, or do you prefer the environments? Like, people are really split between here. And
Yeah, I hate this shadow clone jutsu, man. No way, man. I don't like anything like this. Snowballs and freaking ninjutsu, and what else we have? Geysers, you know? No way. No way. The build defining themes are way more interesting, and they affect, you know, from while you're leveling. You might have now 4 slots to cube something, or you can't cube 4 when leveling, but you're always thinking about stuff throughout every facet of the game. Like even when you're doing speed runs or bounty runs, oh, maybe I can bring Echoing Fury with multi-shot now. That's cool, you know, or pushing or groups. And it's just way more interesting overall than something that happens automatically that, you know, doesn't really have an impact on your build, you know.
Yeah. So one of the things specifically that is so hard, I'm sure is so hard from a developer standpoint, is trying to get the environmental thing right. There is so much more room for error when you try to create something like that than the other things. Like, so let me take this season for example. I have plugged probably at least 4,000 keys in solo 150 between Demon Hunter and Necro. So I've thrown a lot of seasonal buffs. And when you throw a seasonal buff this season, for example, you throw either a snowball, a beam, a meteor, a firewall, or tornadoes. There is one of them that is just way underpowered, and that's firewall. That alone is a huge problem, because 20% of the time you just straight up get screwed. Another huge problem is only two of the 5 buffs can reasonably kill a guardian. There's another problem. And another problem with it is some of the times the firewall doesn't even fire. The other 4 always fire, but sometimes the firewall doesn't even fire. So it's like a double penalty when you see the animation. The rest of it, believe it or not, is okay. The tornadoes, the meteors, the beam, the snowball are pretty good. You have to learn how to throw them all these different ways, but they're acceptable. They won't just instantly ruin your run unless you get to the boss, which you lose at least 60% of the time by default anyway. And you know, they probably put a lot of effort to get it right, but still those glaring problems that still went live and were never fixed for a lot of people just ruined the season. So again, I think one of the reasons why the build changing ones are a little bit better is it's very hard to mess up, just unlock a 4th cube slot and put whatever you want into it, right? There's no variance, there's no RNG. It's all up to you about how you want to build your character. So I think from a developer perspective, I would be much more terrified to try to get an environmental theme tuned correctly than a build changing one.
Oh, pretty excellent point.
So like, let's say you had a seasonal theme where you have like a little spirit bomb meter, and as you kill mobs, it fills up, right? And you can use it on a big density pack, or you can use it on the Rift Guardian. So you don't mind it, you just want to be able to control it more. So then you have like this big energy explosion where you can click it and use it whenever you see fit.
Exactly. And so a lot of people will tell me that season 19 theme is just the same as season 21 theme, right? I mean, at kill streaks, you throw something, and here every 90 seconds you throw something based on the number of kills you have. But in season 19, you had way, way more control. I can tell you, at 150, the geysers are spawning, and the geysers murder. I can tell you those 2 things for sure. I can even reset my stacks and start again if I want to throw another geyser. I can tell you the 300 kill theme is worthless. I can tell you it does nothing. I can tell you it's completely meaningless. I know it's coming. But man, Blood, it feels so bad when you pull. You're at the end of a festering. You've thrown 5 seasonal buffs. They've been garbage. You've had this huge pack. You have 6 elites. You have 120 kills. And if you get a beam, you can get a pentakill. And then you throw a firewall. You lost. It's over. It sucks, dude.
I can hear the pain.
Yeah. Could you hear it in my voice?
Yes. This is a safe space, Rex.
Feel like it just happened right now, yeah.
Well, it's a bit of a side note, but I think it speaks good for the confidence of the crew that maintains Diablo 3 that they're confident enough to pull 2 seasonal themes now. They have the understanding of the inner workings of Diablo to have more things change in a season. Like, even if we don't like the way this one plays out or how the one that's going away played out, it's good to know that they have the know-how and they have the ability to introduce more concepts to the game, something that changes fundamentally the way we play it. And it can only get better, I think, from here on out for the remainder of the Diablo 3 lifespan. So at least that is a good thing. Like, they can do more with the game now. They know how it functions in and out.
Just to pedal back a bit, that side. So I heard Blood's opinion and Rhykker's and Rax's about like environmental against like build changing. What was your take on it again? Like, can you like environmental season themes against?
So I'm trying to put myself in developers' shoes, which is maybe the wrong mindset to go about. But I suppose when I do an environmental theme, I am caring about the spectacle I create for players, something that's visually appealing and immediately apparent even to players who aren't hardcore Diablo players, right? So ones that don't spend days poring over how they develop their character or how to push farther and farther into the end game. So I understand why the environmental effect type seasons are more appealing to developers, because that gets more players engaged across all levels of play, as opposed to the pure mechanical changes of a more mechanics focused season. But yeah, I would be lying to say that I don't prefer a pure mechanics focused season. It just makes more sense. You have the feel of control over your character and how you perform. You don't feel that crushing sadness Rex was talking about. It's just better for the long haul, because the spectacle wears thin after a while, doesn't it? You see those effects so many times that if you're a casual player, you just get used to them, and the ones that are left disappointed are the ones that stick with the game for longer periods. I would say I would definitely prefer the focus to fall on the mechanically interesting seasons over the visually appealing ones.
All right, so we all agree on that one. Yeah, we have bad sample size, bad representation over the the grand community, but it's interesting to see that we all have like a very much the same idea, very united idea. Yes.
All right. If there are no other things on the seasonal theme, that is all that we had, except for we'll have sVr introduce the next episode and do the outro. So the question I have for sVr is, do you want to talk about the planner for the bombardment satyr for about 10 minutes, or do you want to skip it?
We don't need to do this. It's fine. Like, this is definitely something that we'll do in the next episode, because the next episode will actually be an endgame episode. Endgame, as we stated at the very beginning, is something that is more focused for the high-end players, right? So we'll go very in-depth into mechanics, and we'll specifically discuss mechanics of a build and what we see succeed on the PTR right now. This episode will be held on Saturday at the same time. And our guests will be Leviathan, Vudiju, myself, Lexio, and Rex. And we'll mainly discuss what we see on the PTR happening and why it's happening, why does it work. And I think we'll also have a larger section about things that we want to see changed. So we'll try to have some kind of an influence on the next iteration, if at all, and try to give some valuable feedback. And this will be our first endgame episode this Saturday, 8 p.m. CET.
All right. Well, I want to thank sVr, Rhykker, Deadset, Bluddshed coming in. You guys did amazing. I had so much fun here. I thought I was a little bit nervous. Like, are we all going to talk over each other, or how's it going to go? In my opinion, it went absolutely amazing. I love to hear your ideas. I have a lot of respect for all of you guys. So make sure that you guys follow the Danctuary podcast on the Twitch thing down below. You will see a link to our Twitter and a link to our YouTube. I would absolutely love to hear your guys' feedback. You can send it to any of us. You can send it to the Danctuary itself, Matt or sVr, Rhykker, Blood, anybody. Send us your feedback, good or bad. Let us know how we can make it better. And I don't know, did I miss anything, guys? Otherwise, it's PTR time.
Yes, I think a lot of us will stream tonight even, right?
Yeah.
Most of us. So feel free to enter them chats and complain about the podcast or love the podcast or whatever. It was the first one. I'm sure a couple of things can be improved. Just let us know, right?
And I believe we're going to throw you guys over to Blood. Blood, are you firing up the stream right away?
Yeah, let me go do that right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I got to do that. Forgot about that.
Yeah. We'll throw you guys over to Blood. Hey, thank you so much, everybody. That was incredible. I loved it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.